Thank you, Jida. It indeed has been a year full of achievements and impact. If you would like to learn more, you can download the Hub71 Impact Report from www.hub71.com. We now welcome our esteemed panelists and moderators to join our first Abu Dhabi Decoded session for the day.
Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us for this latest edition of Abu Dhabi Decoded. My name is Dan Murphy and I'm from CNBC right here in Abu Dhabi. Joining me in conversation today is His Excellency Sameh Al-Khabaisi, Director General of Economic Affairs at the Department of Economic Development. Also joining us is Ahmed Alfi, is the Chairman of Sawari Ventures and Greek Campus. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here today. Welcome into the conversation. Your Excellency, I'd like to begin with you. Tell me about the type of activity we've seen in Abu Dhabi's tech and investment ecosystem over the last few months, and how are we setting up for the year ahead?
Thank you, Dan, for having me, and thank you for Hub for inviting me to this conversation. And yes, Abu Dhabi considers innovation, entrepreneurship, and digitalization as a cornerstone of the sustainable and long-term economic diversification of the Emirate. Now, the capital also focusing on facilitating and encouraging and providing smart funding to local businesses and actively support startups and entrepreneurs to scale up. This is a perfect illustration of our approach and commitment to our private sector to help them grow and flourish in Abu Dhabi and call Abu Dhabi home.
I wanted to bring Ahmed in here, and Ahmed, your presence in Egypt from Egypt to the UAE. Give me an overview of exactly what it is you do, what you're investing in, and why.
Thank you. Pleasure to be with you. Sawari Ventures started in 2011. We launched our first fund. We also at the same time launched an accelerator called Flat 6 Labs, which opened in Cairo. And Sawari is investing focused mainly on North Africa in growth stage companies. And Flat 6 Labs, the accelerator, has expanded to be in 7 countries in the MENA region in each capital. And one of our countries we started in 2015 was in Abu Dhabi with 2454. And actually the complement to Abu Dhabi as an ecosystem, we had applications from 70 countries, not 70 nationalities, actually 70 countries to relocate and set up in Abu Dhabi, because everybody from the talent from around the world viewed Abu Dhabi so favorably and as a hospitable environment to set up companies. I recall even one game developer company from Russia that came in developing games in Abu Dhabi for Southeast Asia. It was really fascinating global kind of crossroads. We've set up a new fund in Abu Dhabi with ADQ in ADGM, an accelerator, Flat 6 Labs, and I will be there in 2 days to launch a new fund for female health tech in Dubai with Organon Flat 6 Labs. So we're very focused on the UAE, and the UAE as a magnet for talent and as a place that allows people to really fully realize themselves and actualize their talent. It's really, really amazing the success the country has had. And our focus on Egypt is for the deeper tech and the ones that require larger pools. And we like to invest in kind of more techie companies. I think we're probably the only investor in the Middle East that's invested in 2 Arab chip companies, right? So other than Mubadala, but in Egypt, we actually have chip design companies. And so those are the kind of things that we think we can add value with our partners and our experience. And so we're looking to continue to expand the relationship in the UAE. We started and focused in Abu Dhabi, expanding to Dubai, and we'll see what else we can do. And so I'll leave it at that and then kind of come back a little bit about the background, or if you'd like, I can comment on Egypt as well in general.
Sure. I mean, that sounds great. And also, just as an extension to that, I wanted to ask you, maybe give us an overview of as well with regards to the portfolio companies you have at the moment, and what type of investments are you actually targeting? What are you looking for in the UAE and around the region specifically to deploy capital?
In the UAE, we're looking for early stage ideas, right? We're an accelerator. We're looking for early stage ideas. We're really looking for good teams, right? And that's the focus. A good team can make a medium idea work very well. So that's what we screen for. And we have some excellent professionals on both our screening committees. And I won't say too much about the other accelerator. We're launching that in 2 days, and I'll be speaking about that in more detail on Thursday at the launch event. And in Egypt, we're looking for solid founders. Most of our founders are not the doers. They're less about the presentation and more about the execution of ideas. And so our companies tend to not have as much publicity as other companies, but we're looking for people with substance. So we have companies that have developed from zero to being one of the larger prop tech companies in Egypt in a year. Our chip development companies actually started their research 14 years ago in building these chips and these designs. And we've invested with them 3 times in the last 2 years at 3 different valuations. And I don't think we've issued a press release on it. So it's the kind of things where we're actually looking to find solid companies, building solid entrepreneurs, building solid companies with excellent execution.
Okay, fascinating. And Your Excellency, I wanted to bring it back over to you because all of this activity that we're seeing in the region also comes after a number of big reforms were made in the country. So in the past few months, we've seen a new visa regime, for example. There's new foreign ownership laws, a new labor law, there's a new working week in this country, among other reforms. What impact would you say they are having on the ground? And has this wave of reforms that we've seen in the UAE over the past few months actually helped to bring in new investment and attract new investors to this part of the world?
Absolutely. We've seen a surge in investments coming in the past few months and a lot of inquiries coming to us. And I think the idea of the reform is to look at the whole, this word has been repeated more than once, ecosystem. So we're looking at the holistic ecosystem, right? In order to attract the best talents, you need to make it viable for them as a product to come and live. And livability is a very big file here we have. How do you attract the best talent? They want to have easy access. They want to have access to job, information, transparency, and also connected to the ecosystem, whether it be at the universities, the incubators, or also to create for them the subsidies and the grants they require for them to flourish and grow. Obviously, we are open. We are sector and country agnostic. So everyone is welcome to Abu Dhabi and the UAE generally. We have seen also a lot of reforms that are really tactful when it comes to decriminalization of the checks. Today, we are also encouraging people to fail. We want them to come to the UAE and feel that there's a safety net, whether it be it on the licensing part, or also if the company didn't do well, the exit of that company will be easy and straightforward. So all that information and that transparency is important. We want to ensure that end of the day, Abu Dhabi and the UAE generally is the place where people want to come and set up their business. And we look at that from end to end, the entire journey. And one of the files that the Department of Economic Development is focusing on is we're starting to look at sectorial. So today, we don't look at the business we call it a startup or SME or a growth company. We look at it from the angle, is it an SME? What is an SME required to set up? And the different size of the SMEs within it. If you look at the industrial as well, what do we need to encourage industries to grow and flourish? What type of business? Incubation? How do we transform existing businesses to the 4.0? We look at logistics and trade as well. And on top of all of that, we also look at the competitiveness fundamentals. How can livability, innovation, IP registration? So it's all about how do you look at the bigger picture and how to incubate and make sure that you facilitate the journey for any investor that comes to the UAE.
Indeed. And it also all comes back to ensuring that the UAE stays competitive in the region. I just want your take on something that you and I have discussed in the past. And I know this is a narrative that's been playing out in the media over the past few months, but you also see a real impact on the ground. To what extent did rising competition from Saudi Arabia prompt some of these reforms in your view?
I think the competition is fair to all countries. It's not only with Saudi Arabia. We are competing against the best. We're competing against Singapore. We're competing against Hong Kong, and everyone has something else, an angle to offer. We, as Abu Dhabi, want to be, or the UAE want to be open for everybody. We want to make sure that we are transparent. We are open for business. We make it lucrative. We're still, at the end of the day, a product. So that product has to be viable and tested, and that's what we're focusing on. I think competition will rise, some of it maybe in different sectors, but the key to all this is, at the end of the day, we look at it from an individual point of view. You as an individual, where do you see yourself flourish? Where do you feel welcomed? Where do you feel home? And obviously this is something in the UAE we have established very well, and we see our competitive advantage there.
Okay, let's move it back over to Ahmed now, and just maybe, Ahmed, if you could unpack what makes a right fit investment for you. We were talking about some of the opportunities in the region. You were saying you essentially look for founders and agile, innovative founders. What else do you look for in a potential investment?
Companies, we're not looking for heavy CapEx, tech companies, and companies that can scale, right? We've found success in companies that build global products focused on engineering, because it's difficult for consumer products coming out of markets other than the US or China to really be global. That there hasn't been a lot of precedent to that. However, engineers around the world are not really particular about the origin of a product. They just want to see how well it works. We have one of our early companies does app debugging software, and they are currently in about 2.5 to 3 billion mobile devices installed, running in the background, right, with all the major applications. I doubt that anything else will reach that many consumers if you make it into a consumer product out of the MENA region. So we try to focus on that. Things that work in country and in region that can scale also. We are looking at very unique delivery, last mile logistics companies. One of our companies actually works with developers to own a piece of the real estate and put delivery boxes in front of every house, right? And then they own the piece of the real estate, and they can deliver groceries overnight, they can deliver medicine, they can deliver anything, and even deliver the last mile for courier companies. So not to compete in the convenience 5, 10, 20-minute delivery of a finite set of products. So looking for people also that can develop proprietary positions. So that's really where the things that intrigue us as people who've been doing this for a while. I mean, I've been investing in tech companies since the late 80s. My partner, Hani Sombati, was the first VC in the MENA region with the first fund in the mid-2000s, 2004 or 5. So we're looking to do that, and then to broaden the net a bit to try and capture some of the people that get through the system. There are really still too many talented people in the MENA region that don't get funded. Our talent to funding ratio is still an immense arbitrage versus the rest of the world, right? Specifically for accelerators, and then further on for VC firms. And I think Abu Dhabi and Dubai present that opportunity really in being fertile ground, which unfortunately for Egyptians, a lot of our talent migrates to Abu Dhabi and Dubai once they grow to a certain point because of ease of use. Whereas you can collect a lot of talented people here in Egypt to build a team. Once you really start running and driving at 100 miles an hour, there's a few road bumps in most of the other Arab countries. And we're hoping to kind of, again, maybe smooth out the road bumps in all the other countries so that the whole region can grow as quickly as the UAE and be as fertile of an ecosystem as UAE is.
Indeed. And Ahmed, if I could just tap into your experience, as you were outlining, you have a lot of experience in this ecosystem. When you look ahead and even look back, what do you like, what do you not like about the state of the investment ecosystem today. Are there any problems, risks, challenges you see out there that just don't sit well with you at the moment? Given your experience, you've been in this space for a really long time now. What do you like? What do you not like?
What I like is seeing people leave their corporate jobs, and people with 10, 15 years experience, to join startups. We're looking at teams now that, we would have never seen 5, 10 years ago. I think that makes me tremendously optimistic. The other thing is those people will be recycled as angels and advisors in 3 to 5 years. So that's going to be a big plus for the ecosystem. And the thing that concerns me is the increasing valuations a bit. There's going to be a correction. There's always ups and downs. With a lot of new entrants into the VC space and into the tech space, I hope that a correction, which will be there first, does not discourage them from the market, specifically institutions. A lot of institutional players in the whole region are getting into VC and adding it to their portfolio. And a correction that's going to happen 1, 2, 5 years, I hope it just doesn't turn them off and that we keep going and they stay committed to the concept and think of VC long term. In reality, VC is a longer term investment than real estate, right? Because you have to get married and stay. You can actually, halfway through the development of a project, of a real estate project, you can flip it. You can't flip a VC deal after 1, 2, 3 years. Those companies really have to mature and you have to take a long-term perspective on VC investment. And I hope that the people that are coming into it as a hot market have that long-term perspective in the background.
Your Excellency, I can see you nodding your head. Would you agree with that?
No, I do agree. And I think what Ahmed is doing is great because we need more companies. We need more people to leave the big institutions and join the startup phase. And we do have a lot of good talent. And I think back 2, 3 years ago, I looked at the VC space, and one of the things that I was worried about is that the same names are in the same VC's books. So the correlation risk between them was very high. From my point of view as an institutional investor, that was a risk because you have a correlation risk between all the VCs. They technically have 75% of the names. And I think that's what we're really focusing and aiming on is incubation, attraction, angel investment. I sit on the board of I'm the vice chairman of the Emirates Angel Association. And one thing I really stress on is how do we make it easier for business to start up, right? How do we provide them the right advice? How do we get them the right incubators? How do we get the angel investors share their experience with them and mentorship? And I think we are on the right track in Abu Dhabi and the UAE. We have done a lot of investment in incubators, and we've also looked at working closely with universities and schools. We're already tackling the future of work and the lifelong learning from workforce readiness, upskilling and reskilling employees. So a lot of the social, topics are being now addressed because reality is, yes, we had a couple of good unicorns and we have a good run, but you cannot have all the institutional money focusing on the unicorn. You could count them in their hands. So how do you create and facilitate new unicorns to come into the marketplace? And I think that's really important. And I think we're a long way on that right now. And we will see a lot of new companies and new entities coming up to escalate that growth.
Absolutely, you would hope so. And Ahmed, to your point earlier, what do you think is actually the root cause of this? Is this too many dollars chasing too few deals or something else at play?
No, I think it's just it's new players who are not really seasoned in the risk reward of VC and the valuations. So at what stage do you price things, and some things are being priced in comps to US and Chinese companies versus what their market potential truly is. So I think it'll work itself out. It's going to have to be digested through the system, but it'll work itself out. And as I said, I'm very optimistic, and that's the only cautionary point that I would say about the system. I don't see any other risks or any other material risks to the tech ecosystem and venture capital in the region, other really than that one. Those of us who've been doing this for a long time have seen ups and downs, and if the market tanks, we have reserve funds for our companies to get them through the valleys. We have all these things in consideration, and I hope that everybody does.
And when you look ahead, I also wanted to ask you about some of the big exits, the big IPOs that we've seen in the region, the big local success stories. Angami comes to mind, of course, which just hit public markets in the US. The Kareem deal was enormous for the region and really validated the startup ecosystem and the ecosystem broadly around this part of the world. Where do you think the next Middle East unicorn is going to come from? And are we seeing signs of it yet?
Well, I mean, the next one we hope is Swivel, which has the filings pending. It's one of our portfolio companies, and the CEO used to work with us in a previous life. He's a fantastic entrepreneur. I think that there will be several. Hopefully that the unicorns that come are not valuation unicorns only, but substance unicorns. Okay, and that they have the solid background and the solid prospects to earn and keep that valuation. Would not like to see unicorns that go up to be unicorn status and then pull back later. So I think we'll see it. I see 3 or 4 in my portfolio that I think easily have that potential, right? And I see quite a few more in the region. And there are large pools coming in to look at different companies. We've seen a few companies in the UAE that have raised $200, $300, $400 million. Those are serious numbers. Those are serious numbers, and hopefully the expectations that those numbers are based on will be met. I don't like to see disappointed investors.
Your Excellency, to that point, I wanted to ask you about the development of the capital markets here as well. Increasing in sophistication, increasing in depth and liquidity. It's been really fascinating to watch this play out over the past couple of years as Abu Dhabi and the UAE broadly really puts a new emphasis on the capital markets here, which is really important for developing the startup ecosystem and ensuring that those opportunities are out there if that's an avenue that investors wanted to pursue. At the same time, we're also going to be seeing a number of big state utilities as well as a number of other firms going public, likely this year and next in Dubai, which would be an additional validation of the capital markets here. When you look at the state of the capital markets and how they compare to Saudi Arabia, for example, what do you see moving forward, and how important is it to be investing in capital markets in the UAE and the work that the government's doing in the UAE to ensure that there's improving liquidity and beyond in these markets?
So let's focus on the traditional IPOs. I think I was actually in London meeting some of the investors, the large investors, and there's significant appetite for Abu Dhabi GREs or Abu Dhabi companies going to the traditional way of listing. So in terms of liquidity for Abu Dhabi, given our country rating, given the security of the whole region around Abu Dhabi, where we're going, it's not the issue. I think the issue is the quality of the companies and the allocation, because again, we need to work and give more allocation to investors from the traditional IPO. Now, that's traditional IPO. It's sound, solid. There's a lot of good transactions coming in the pipeline, whether it's GRE related or none. Looking at the flip side, and I've heard Angami, the name ring, we want to position Abu Dhabi as a scale-up nation. i.e., it's not only that you graduate from here as a company, but we want you to also raise your capital and have access to capital from the capital of the UAE. What that means is, how do you access this institutional pools? How do you get the lawyers in the country to know how to draft the prospectus? How to give an opportunity, the likes of Kareem or back then Souk? Why would you have to merge? Maybe you had to continue as your own company, being to raise your own money. Back then, those instruments were not available to them. Today, they are available. They're widely available. We have actually started conducting seminars and private and public consultation along with ADX and ESCA regulator to educate and get people excited about it. So the only word I leave with it, we have a robust capital market, very healthy, very well regulated, and we're looking forward for a successful year ahead.
Does more work need to be done to increase retail participation in the capital markets here? And why do you think it has been up until now the case that retail investors just haven't been really willing to participate, at least in the years prior to 2020, 2021, 2022? Why is that the case? Was it a trust deficit? Was it just a lack of understanding? I mean, what's driven this increased interest over the past couple of years, and why didn't we see it in years prior?
If you look at 2006, 2007, we had the herd mentality. The retail investor was the driver of the investments. In the past few years, it's due to the capital market slowness, the liquidity issues from a global perspective. It was more lucrative for issuers to target institutional pipeline. That's the reality. But they're always. I'm talking about traditional IPOs, right? So the reality is that the current issue that comes, the float is not that wide enough to accommodate, and it's crowded by institutional investors. And that's not only local institutional. I'm talking about global institutional investors. So the reality is we will see a surge on the retail side. In terms of the non-conventional IPO, yes, we do require a lot of education, appropriateness, suitability between the product we're selling and the education of the retail sector to understand what they're investing in, and the risk is very important on our agenda as well. And we're starting to host a series of programs with the retail investor to educate them about the new transactions coming in, both not only the investor but also the issuers. We're showing them the bag of options than the traditional IPO. You're talking about late stage, you're talking about preferred shares, you're talking about convertibles, and also to deviate away. Not that we don't want them to go to the banks, but we're also showing them different channels, whether it's investment, VCs. So that's the framework is there, the setup is there, and now we're undergoing the education part of it.
Indeed. Well, I have really enjoyed the conversation so far. We only have a few minutes left. I was thinking perhaps we could just get some closing thoughts, some final views from our panelists. And Ahmed, your thoughts as we close out?
I would just say, I think, I'm looking forward to expanding our business in the UAE and wishing Hub71 and all the efforts that they're doing tremendous success, and hoping that all the governments in the Arab world copy all the things that Abu Dhabi and Dubai got right, and we have a better flourishing ecosystem throughout the region.
And Your Excellency, anything further you'd like to add before we close our session?
I'll keep it simple. We are here as government to serve you. Public-private partnership is very important for us. The private sector is the backbone of any economy. We need to focus on them, and we're going to continue focusing on them and making sure that Abu Dhabi is the launchpad of the Middle East and Africa and Asia, the East-West corridor. And that's where we're positioning ourselves, and we're open for business.
Indeed. Well, that is one bright note to end on. So, gentlemen, I appreciate you joining the conversation today. Thank you very much for being part of this latest edition of Abu Dhabi Decoded. My name is Dan Murphy from CNBC. We appreciate you watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.